Did you know that pornography is not just a habit, but something that literally rewires your brain? It interferes with dopamine and can create a cycle that is hard to break. The good news is that there is a way to reverse all of this. Today we will explore how the brain is affected and what techniques you can use to change this reality. So, how are you feeling today? Leave a comment so we can chat. Pornography consumption is not just a habit, but a phenomenon that literally alters the brain. The intense and rapid visual stimuli present in pornographic content activate the brain's pleasure and reward areas in a manner similar to addictive substances. This leads to a significant release of dopamine, which is responsible for creating that sense of immediate satisfaction. However, unlike a tasty meal or a spontaneous laugh, pornography activates this system excessively, generating a repetitive cycle of use. And, like any addiction, it's hard to break. Pornography can create new neural pathways that facilitate repeated behavior, explaining why it's so difficult for many to stop consuming this type of content. These neural highways become preferred routes in the brain, replacing other more natural and healthy sources of pleasure. It's as if the brain becomes programmed to seek that quick reward, neglecting more complex and enriching sources of satisfaction, such as reading an intriguing book or cultivating an artistic hobby. In daily life, this translates into increasing difficulty concentrating on ordinary activities, as the brain starts to prioritize the quick and intense stimulation of pornography. For instance, someone might try to read a book or watch a movie, but the level of engagement and pleasure is comparatively low. Soon, frustration sets in, and the person returns to the easier stimulus. This is the cycle that keeps the user trapped, while other areas of life, such as work or relationships, begin to be affected. To illustrate, imagine a student trying to review their notes for an exam, but unable to focus. Their mind, conditioned to seek intense stimuli, struggles to concentrate on the words and content, preferring something more exciting. This difficulty arises from how the brain becomes accustomed to receiving pleasure easily, compromising the ability to maintain attention on less stimulating but equally important activities. However, the human brain is incredibly adaptable. This neuroplasticity means that the same pathways formed due to pornography consumption can also be undone with new habits. Studies suggest that a 60-day break from pornography begins to reverse these brain patterns. During this period, it's essential to fill the time with other activities that also provide pleasure and growth, such as physical exercise, reading fiction, or even learning a musical instrument. Nevertheless, the process is not easy. Like any compulsive behavior, the mind may resist, creating a sense of emptiness or boredom during the first few weeks without pornography. This is the brain complaining about the lack of the familiar stimulus. But as the weeks pass, this resistance starts to decrease, making room for new, deeper, and longer-lasting sources of satisfaction. In today's video, in addition to the main topics, I'd like to share something that has made a difference for me. Recently, I started using CineBoost, which has been helping me improve focus, energy, and even reduce anxiety in my daily life. If you're interested in learning more, check out the pinned comment, and the best part is, you only pay for shipping. Pornography consumption is directly linked to high spikes in dopamine, a neurotransmitter that promotes feelings of pleasure and reward in the brain. When someone watches pornographic content, the release of dopamine is rapid and intense, creating an excitement pattern far beyond what ordinary activities offer. This not only generates a momentary sense of euphoria, but also starts a cycle of seeking similar stimuli to maintain this high. Over time, excessive dopamine affects how the brain responds to pleasure. As with recreational drugs, the brain starts to build a tolerance, requiring increasingly intense stimuli to reach the same level of satisfaction. What once caused moderate excitement becomes boring, prompting the user to seek more extreme content. This is a clear sign that the reward system has been deregulated, making immediate pleasure almost a physiological need. In the long term, this dependence on dopamine peaks can impair other areas of life. For example, simple leisure moments, like watching a movie or cooking a meal, may seem monotonous by comparison. The brain, accustomed to instant rewards, finds it challenging to engage in activities that require more time and effort to generate pleasure. This not only affects mood, but also reduces the ability to enjoy simpler and more meaningful experiences. A good example is reading an engaging novel. Initially, it may not offer the same dopamine rush as pornography, but over time, the reader is absorbed by the narrative and feels a deeper, longer-lasting pleasure. The same goes for learning a new language or practicing a sport. These activities require initial effort, but reward with a more stable and healthy sense of accomplishment. Reducing pornography consumption, therefore, is essential to restore the balance of dopamine levels. The transition can be challenging in the first few weeks, with the brain craving the intense stimulus it was used to receiving. But this is when it's crucial to fill the time with other pleasurable activities, such as meditation, outdoor walks, or even cooking new dishes. The longer one goes without pornography, the better the brain can regulate dopamine production naturally. This gradual adjustment is part of the brain's re-education process. Neuroscience shows that the brain can create new connections and rebalance dopamine production, but this requires time and consistency. Meditation practice, for example, is an excellent way to reprogram the mind, promoting a more lasting sense of well-being without the need for intense peaks of excitement. Frequent pornography consumption has been linked to sexual health issues, such as erectile dysfunction and decreased sexual desire, especially among younger individuals. This occurs because the brain, accustomed to intense and constant visual stimuli, starts having difficulty becoming aroused in real-life situations, where interaction is slower and less intense. In other words, the brain becomes desensitized to natural arousal, creating barriers to healthy sexual performance in real life. This desensitization affects not only physical performance, but also the emotional bond with a partner. Many young people report having difficulty maintaining long-term romantic relationships because pornography creates unrealistic expectations of what sex should be. Genuine sexual interaction, which involves emotional connection, physical contact, and intimacy, seems less appealing compared to the extreme visual stimuli of pornography. In this context, it is common for individuals who regularly consume pornography to feel less confident in real intimacy situations. Performance anxiety can increase, resulting in a cycle of frustration and insecurity fueled by constant comparison to unrealistic scenarios. For example, a young person may avoid sex for fear of not being able to match the level of excitement they are used to seeing on screens, leading to avoidance of romantic encounters. Another relevant aspect is the deterioration of social skills, especially during developmental stages. When pornography becomes the primary source of sexual satisfaction, there is less motivation to seek real social interactions, which are essential for healthy personal growth. Instead of facing the natural discomfort of a first date, for instance, many opt for the easier path of digital consumption. This not only affects sexual health, but also the development of communication skills and empathy. To reverse these problems, it is essential to reduce or even eliminate pornography consumption and gradually seek reconnection with real intimacy in a healthy way. Practices such as sex therapy, reading relationship books, and even mindfulness exercises can be helpful. The goal is to re-educate the brain to respond positively to natural stimuli and build confidence in real interactions, promoting a healthier and more fulfilling sex life. The brain has an incredible capacity for adaptation called neuroplasticity, which means it can change and reconfigure itself over time. This characteristic is fundamental to understanding how pornography consumption creates lasting habits, but also how these habits can be broken. The same neuroplasticity that allows for the creation of fast routes for consumption can be used to build new pathways focused on healthier and more constructive habits. To achieve this, a period of abstinence is necessary to allow the brain to detoxify from excessive stimuli and return to normal levels of pleasure and arousal. Research suggests a period of 60 days without exposure to any type of pornographic content as a milestone to start this brain re-education. During this time, it is common to feel a void as the brain adjusts to the absence of the dopamine peaks. But this is precisely when new pathways can be created, bringing satisfaction from other, healthier sources. A practical example for those going through this process is to start a new hobby, such as painting, sports, or even gardening. These activities not only help divert attention, but also provide a type of pleasure that is more consistent and lasting. Another example is practicing breathing techniques and meditation, which help reduce anxiety and stabilize dopamine levels naturally, creating a more solid foundation of well-being. It's important to remember that changing habits is not linear and requires patience. There will be easier days and more challenging ones, but each moment of resistance is an opportunity to strengthen new neural pathways. Consistency, therefore, is more important than perfection in this process. If there are relapses, the most important thing is to refocus and persist, always remembering that the brain is constantly transforming and that positive changes will come over time. An effective resource for successful habit change is having a support system, such as friends, support groups, or even apps that help monitor progress. Knowing that you are not alone in this process can be a motivating factor and bring more resilience during the more difficult phases. Thus, each new healthy choice further strengthens the brain, creating a virtuous cycle of positive change. Now it's time to keep learning. Watch other videos on the channel to deepen your knowledge and transform your life. And speaking of transformation, CineBoost has been helping me improve focus, energy, and even reduce anxiety. If you want to know more, check out the pinned comment, and the best part is, you only pay for shipping. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you won't miss more content like this.